We're here on the 5th day of August at UCLA. It's of course a beautiful sunny day, as it usually is. And we're about to hear from Ori, who's going to share with us how she tried to be respectful for the last 48 hours. This is part 2 of our reports.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Ori.
Hi Ori.
So when I think about respect, I think of it as a two-way street. So once you give respect, I kind of expect that it'll come back to me. So when I started this experiment, I was really optimistic. I was like, oh, everyone's going to be so nice if I'm nice to them. And I had some good experiences, some bad and some really bad ones, and I'll share those with you. So for my good experience, I went to a burger place in Santa Monica last night with my friend, and it was really great, and the food was great, and we ordered and then sat down, and then the guy that brought our food out was the actual guy that made the food, so he put it down, and then he just walked away. And so later on, he came around to our table and just came up to us and was like, oh, how's your food? And so, trying to be respectful, I looked at him in the eyes, smiled, and said, oh, it's really great, and I genuinely meant it. And then he kind of looked back at me, and he looked really happy, and he just put his hand on my shoulder and was like, thank you, and then walked away. And as he was walking back to the kitchen, he seemed just smiling and happy. And it was nice because one small gesture can mean like so much to someone. And then for my bad, so I went to CVS really late at night, to buy some Flaming Hot Cheetos because I love Flaming Hot Cheetos. And then I went up to the cashier and she was not looking at me at all and just kind of looked at my items and swiped it. And so I looked up at her and I was like, hi, how are you? And I smiled at her and she kind of just like looked up at me and like kind of gave me like a weird look and then looked back down. And then swiped my items and she told me my total, so then I was like, okay, here. And I gave her my money, smiled at her again, and she completely just like waved it off, and she was just like, okay, like whatever, and just took my money, gave me my change, and when she was giving me my change, I tried again, and I was about to wish her like, have a good night, but then she was already on to the second customer, and I completely got cut off, and I was just like, okay. So, I mean, I guess it's really obvious that even if you give respect, sometimes you don't get it back. And then for my ugly, so I was going back to my apartment, and there were like gardeners that were sweeping off the leaves off of the stairs up to my apartment. And so I went up to them, and I guess like while they're sweeping, they'll like kind of stop. And then I was trying to pass, and then he stopped, and he kind of looked at me, smiled, and then I looked up at him and smiled, and then I continued on my way. And then as I was walking back, I heard him whistle at me from behind me. And I kind of turned around, because I was like, oh, maybe it wasn't him. But then he looked at me and winked, and then went back to sweeping. And he was like 45, and I was kind of just like, oh. And like, it was kind of like your story, how I was trying to show respect, but then it kind of came back really disrespectful, and it was like catcalling. So that was bad. But other than that, I learned that it was really nice to show respect and then get it back. I had really good experiences with like most of the people I talked to. It was just really eye-opening how one gesture that you make to people can be received in so many different ways. And I guess I started the whole thing very optimistic, and I guess that was maybe a little too idealistic, but I just learned that there's so many different ways that people can receive everything you do.
Thank you. So we're on this row still.
I'm Matt.
And Matt.
I thought it was really well laid out. Your format, you tied things together pretty well at the end of it. I thought that was well done.
Are you standing up? No, you stand up in a public speaking class. Thank you, Matt. Next.
Hi, I'm Teresa.
Hi, Teresa.
I thought, like, when you were talking, I felt like, because you talk a lot, like, my roommate was, like, also my best friend, and, like, just, like, the way you tell stories, I felt like she was, like, that's how she tells stories, which is, like, I don't know if that's, like, a good or a bad thing, because it just felt, like, very casual, but, like, otherwise it was, like, all really, really good.
Okay, Ori, let me give you some feedback. You started off, I'm not sure that you had a particularly great intro grabber, a poem quote, a story that was particularly amazing. It was okay. You talked about respect being a definitional and a two-way street, and just being open and honest about. You give it, you get it back, and then you tie back to that, and you say, well, I guess I kind of was right about that, but not always, and so that was okay. But do be thinking in the future about how you can start a speech with a poem, a quote, a story, a joke, or something that'll really draw the audience in and grab them, make them want to listen. On the good story, say the name of the place, a few more little details. I went to Burger King in Santa Monica or whatever it was. And the chef came out, Chef Boardy, was that his name? And you gave him a sincere compliment, and he was pleased because this is his business, and he was happy, and so that was a good story. And I liked how you had a little moral at the end of your story. So you learned from Steve Jobs to have a little, what this all meant. Yeah, CVS in Westwood. Heard these stories before, especially from the overnight clerks. Tough shift, tough job, and don't like to mince words. And but you kept trying, and you kept trying, and kept repeating the mantra, and that's good. And yeah, but that's kind of bad, and there's no excuse. They should be better trained to respond, but sometimes you just don't break through. On the ugly, yeah, it goes back to the, men are dogs, and they misinterpret just a friendly smile, and some men haven't learned that whistling and catcalling is no longer acceptable in our society. Both ways, for men toward women and women toward men, but we're slowly evolving on that one. But I could see why you weren't overjoyed at being whistled at, by an old man, as you put it. He was 45, ooh, right? Yeah, a little ageism there, huh? Okay. And then your summing up was good. So you got the job done. A little better tie back I would have liked. But you did a good job, Ori. Thank you. Okay. Another volunteer. Here we go. Yeah. Excellent. It's stapled. That's even better.
Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa.
So I just wanted to start off. I bet that if we took a poll and randomly asked individuals if you think respect is important in a relationship or interaction with other individuals, I can guarantee that almost 100% of the population would say yes, respect is important. And so with that, our parents usually teach us from a very early age to respect one another. So going into this experiment, I didn't really think my interactions would change with other people, just because I thought I'm normally respectful and I always try to be polite with everyone. But I actually ended up learning a lot about the impact of true respect. And with that, I would like to tell you 3 stories. One would be a good, a bad, and an ugly that came out of this social respect. First off, my good story. I'm a volunteer at the Santa Monica Hospital, and I arrived Tuesday a little early to my shift, so I was just waiting in the lobby, and when I see an elderly woman come in, I said, I thought to myself, I respect you, and I looked at her and I smiled, and then she looked a little lost and confused, so she came up to me and she asked me if I knew where the orthopedic department was. I said, knowing that I had a few extra minutes, I said, sure, I'll take you over right now. So we started walking down to the orthopedic department. I decided to break the ice and ask her how her day was. She got quiet, and then she nervously said that she was nervous because she was here to see the doctors about some results of potential bone cancer. I didn't really know what to say, but I said that I was really sorry to hear that. And as we kept walking, she kind of opened up to me again, and she started talking about how this wouldn't be the worst news that she would receive, and how a couple years ago she actually lost her son to cancer, and I was lost for words. I didn't know what to say, and I said, I'm so sorry, that's terrible to hear. And then as we arrived to the orthopedic department, I was saying goodbye to her, and she leaned in to hug me, so I gave her a hug, and then she told me, I'm so glad I talked to you today. It was like an angel. I felt like I was meant to talk to you. And at that moment, I just felt so grateful knowing that just how showing respect to someone can lead to these communications and these interactions that I never thought before. And for the bad, coming out of this classroom, I normally would just put in my headphones and speed to my apartment and say, oh, I'm going to take this seriously and look at every individual. And I thought, oh, like, people smile back at me if I smiled, but everyone just kept looking away, or like they'd make eye contact and clearly look away, or I even got some frowns, like, why are you looking at me oddly or awkwardly? And at that moment, I just didn't feel appreciated, and I felt very ignored, so that was the bad that came out of trying to show respect but not getting it back. And for the ugly, it goes back to my volunteership. I actually volunteer at the NICU, which is the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit. And when I arrived, I noticed that there was 2 parents that have never been in the unit before. So I asked one of the charge nurse, did we have a new admit baby? And she told me, yeah, we just got a 24-week baby who is in a critical condition. And knowing this, I looked over at the parents and I showed respect and politely smiled at them. And the mother just kind of looked at me really angry and like turned to her husband, and she was just like, I'm so tired of people just staring at us. Can't they just give us some privacy with our baby? And at that moment, I just felt really horrible because I was just trying to respect them and know that I was there if they needed any help, but I just felt rejected. And so overall from this experience, I learned that even though you have gestures of respect, you don't always get that back. But even though some of it was bad or even ugly, the moments that you do get from good communication or like someone opening up to you like makes up for that and just lets me know that I should keep on being respectful, because it's moments like that that really are impacting, and those are the moments why our parents would tell us be respectful, because they really make it worthwhile.
Thank you. 412. Okay, here.
I'm Angela.
Hi, Angela. Angela Davis.
Yes, but I'm not Doris. Vanessa, I really love your voice, and although you sing fast, but I love to listen because your voice is so beautiful, and I get most of your ideas.
Thank you.
Improvement.
Hi, I'm Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn.
Your stories are really relatable and really good examples. But I felt like you were talking really fast, and like you always like jumped into like it was like intro, then you quickly went into your good and then bad. So I think, but overall, it's really good.
Yeah. Okay. Get you back in focus here. Okay. Well, gosh. Even though you were talking fast, you still went 401, but I really like the spirit of how you did the experiment, and you got good results. You started out by saying your parents have taught you to be respectful, and you were sort of thinking this is anticlimactic, this experiment, but then then after doing it, you realized you had something to learn. So I appreciate hearing that. Your first story was your best story, your good story. Yes, it's as in the parents of Tracy Nguyen. You don't ever want to bury your child. I pray to God every night, take me. I've had a long, beautiful life. Don't take my children, God. It's just an unnatural act. And so this poor woman that lost her son, it's got to be tough. And for you to listen to her and hear her out in a sympathetic way was good. So I like the way you had the moral at the end of your story, so that was good. On the bad, yes, I warned you that, this campus in this world has become digitized, and we think we're communicating when we're staring at our Steve Jobs phones, but we're not. And on the ugly, there's two things I want to say about this incident, about the family that had a 24-week baby that was in tough shape. That's a really tough age, to try to survive at. They're very anxious, and one of the things you have to realize is that meaning is in the receiver. I'll repeat that. Meaning is in the receiver. So your motives were pure, and that's all you can do. You meant love and respect when you gave it, but they interpreted your respect as intrusion. So, because that's where meaning is interpreted, is in the receiver, see? So, that's your lesson. What you learned was good, summary, conclusion, and topic. You just needed to cut out some of the words so you could slow down and still say all your stories. But you did a very nice job. Thank you, Vanessa. Another volunteer. Excellent. And stapled. Excellent. She stands before you, managing attention, communicating respect, finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name. Feel the love. Oh, I see you're a little taller than. Just a minute. Don't have you in focus. Say your name. Feel the love. Start your speech.
Okay. Hi, I'm Christiana. And
Hi, Christiana.
And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my experience of how I communicated respect non-verbally and the reactions that I got from people. And from this experiment, I came up with 3 different situations that could be categorized into the good, bad, and ugly. For my good, I'm going to stray off a little bit because there's an experience that happened to me today. If you haven't already figured, I play for the UCLA women's soccer team, and we had our first preseason practice today where we had to run the beep test, which is not a fun fitness test. And during this beep test, I was running, and there was a freshman newcomer who was right next to me, and we were getting to the point during the beep test where people were dropping out, people were really tired, and I can tell that, this freshman was really doubting herself and thinking, like, I can't do it anymore. And so as she was, bending over, I put my arm around her on her shoulder and just looked at her and, gave her respect and said, gave off this, you can do it, let's do this together. And she ended up being able to finish out 3 more sprints, and it was really inspiring for me because I knew that if you display respect towards your teammates or towards people around you, it builds a sort of confidence and trust. So for my bad experience, what happened was I went to Starbucks, and I, usually in the mornings it's very busy. People kind of want to go on with their day and not really talk to people. And so I grabbed my drink and started heading out towards the exit, and I saw an older guy walking behind me. So I kindly opened the door for him and waited for him to proceed to walk outside. And he looked at me and just kept walking. Didn't say anything, didn't acknowledge what I did, and I thought it was very respectful. But, what I learned is that sometimes your act of respect will go unnoticed, but that doesn't mean it should discourage you from stopping to continue to give off respect and whatnot. And for my ugly experience, this was pretty ugly. I was coming back from dinner with my friends in Santa Monica. It was late, and I was walking back to my car, and I see a homeless person sitting on a bench, and I noticed he was pretty disheveled, kind of alone. So I felt bad, and as I was walking back, I repeated the mantra in my head and was just like, I respect you, like, so I looked at him, I smiled and nodded, and he his body language just changed immediately. He sunk in on the bench, gave me a scowl, and cussed at me and was like, "What the F are you doing?" or smiling at. And I just kind of looked at him and just kept walking. And when that happened, I just thought to myself, wow, like, sometimes when you give off respect, sometimes people won't reciprocate it, but you have to respect that people come from different situations, they have different stories, and sometimes people just won't reciprocate your respect. So again, you shouldn't be discouraged from continuing to give off respect. So ultimately, everyone deserves respect that you encounter with, and treat people the way you want to be treated, and no matter what, you should always display respect towards everyone around you.
Thank you. That was 4 minutes. Next.
I'm Kent.
Hi, Ken.
I thought your speech was really good. It flowed well. I especially liked how personal your stories were, especially about the new soccer player and how you helped her out. And and the homeless person story too. That was also really detailed. I really like that. So, thanks.
Thank you, Kent.
Hi, I'm Ada.
Ada? Hi, Ada.
I think your story is very clear, and I love your smile, and I think you do very well.
How can she improve, Ada?
Her story is very clear.
How can she get better? What could she do differently? What could she say differently that would make it better speech? Yeah.
Maybe she could speak slowly.
Slowly. Yeah, thank you. That's always a good one. Christiana, let's talk about your speech. When you watch yourself tonight on YouTube, you'll see, like some of the others, you just jumped right into your speech without much of an intro. You just got right down to business. But okay, here it is, and ba-da-da. Usually your audience likes a little chance to get used to you, so a poem, a quote, a story, or something gets your audience used to you, and you grab them and draw them in, and that sort of thing. On your first story, on your good, we don't know the lingo of the girls' soccer. Was it a beat test? Beat test? Yeah. Whatever that stands for. It's some sort of endurance test, right? Maybe you should have said the endurance test. And you helped her, a young lady, maybe give her a name, Betty, who was giving up, and I just said, "Come on, Betty, don't give up," and she didn't, and that felt good, and I gave her the nonverbal respect, so that was good. On the bad, I already alluded to these kinds of things happening, of opening doors and having 10 people go through and not acknowledging you, and this is the good-mannered society we live in these days. On the ugly, yes, well, you have to be careful about doing respect. Many homeless are mentally ill, and they're dealing with a different reality, and you have to be careful because he may have thought your smile, you were mocking him. And, once again, meaning is in the receiver, and so what in your world, a smile and a respectful vibe to him was meant in the purest of ways. To him, it was interpreted as, you're mocking me. What are you smiling about, you mongrel bee, right? Right? Which is what you said he said in your paper. So, yeah. So meaning is in the receiver, and you have to be careful doing this with homeless people. A little long and slow down, work on word economy, but you got the job done. Thank you. Okay, we'll do one more and then we'll stop. Okay, let me get you in focus. There you go, Grayson.
My name's Grayson.
Hi, Grayson. Feet a little wider apart. There you go, good.
So I guess I was a bit nervous to do this experiment at first because I'm from the South, so I always assumed that when you smile at people is more friendly than necessarily respectful, and I always thought that respect is something that was earned. And so I wanted to go in with an open mind, and my 3 stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly, they did change my perception on respect. So my first story, I was in Starbucks, as a lot of the stories started, and I walked up to the barista, and normally you just give your order and don't really have any small talk or anything, but I decided I was going to mix it up for the sake of the experiment, and I smiled, and I was like, how are you? And she was like, great. And being from the South, I have a very Southern name, and most of the time, basically nobody ever gets my name right in California when they're writing it on the cup, which is fine. I don't have a problem. It's usually Grace or Gracie or some other invention. But when she asked for my name, I guess she must have felt comfortable enough, since we had struck up a little bit of a conversation, that she asked how to spell it. And when I told her it was Grayson, she was like, no way, you must be from the South, because I'm from Atlanta. And my best friend just had a son that she named Grayson. And so coming out of it was like really nice to have this like bonding, and we became fast little acquaintances, and it was just sweet to have this connection, especially for someone like me who's out of state and doesn't have the connection from the South very often. So that was very positive. And then my bad experience was, as said a few other times, was just walking around campus. I usually have my headphones in and like listen to music, so I decided not to. I was going to look around at people and smile and be kind and try to show that I was showing respect to other people, but generally people won't look at you. They like, won't make eye contact. If they do, they like look away, and it's like turns into almost an awkward encounter than like a positive, happy, respectful one. So I thought that was kind of negative, and that nobody wants to like look up for a moment and like enjoy the fact that they're in college in this beautiful campus, and like people are smiling at you and be happy. But so I thought that was a bit negative. So I guess that's just how people like received my smile. But my bad, ugly experience was I was walking to my apartment, and I'm crossing the street. So when you leave Deneb and you're crossing Gailey, there's that crosswalk. So you press the button, the light switches from green, and it's like blinking red. And so then you get the Walkman, right? You can walk. And so you walk across the street, but there's this car that like screeched to a halt right when the light turned red, and it was kind of giving me like death glare, like, oh, press the button, now I gotta wait for you. So I like look at him, and I'm like, should I go? Is he gonna run me over? So I smile, and he just looks at me, and I start to walk. And by the time I'm like halfway through the crosswalk, he like accelerates through the crosswalk, like 3 feet away from me, and I thought I was gonna die, but it was fine. But I just thought that was so rude and so disrespectful, since, I mean, yes, it was a blinking red, but obviously I was crossing. And I just, after even having that like eye contact, I just thought he was being really disrespectful. And the fact that he was a car, he assumed that he had like greater power over a pedestrian who had the right of way. So I thought that was really negative and kind of an ugly story. So coming around full circle, I think definitely my perception has changed on respect. I think smiling to people and showing them that you're open and kind is not only being kind and compassionate, it's showing them respect, which is really important. Everybody deserves to be respected, to be treated with respect, regardless of how they act or how they take the respect or how they take your smile. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, where are we? Here, yes.
Hi, I'm Brianna.
Brianna.
I really liked how your speech was linear. And like, I feel like a lot of it with other people's speeches, including mine, is that you don't people have a good time and at the end. So I really like that you really came full circle.
Thank you.
I'm Sierra.
Hi, Sierra.
I really like your speech too. It's really awesome and it was very natural for your talk. But I think like because you were so comfortable, maybe some words were added that you could have cut just to make the time limit. So that's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, you went 3:45. Okay. You started off with, you talked about respect being earned and that sort of thing, and you came back to that, and that was good and fine. The Starbucks, that was a good story and a good bonding, and I like the way you used your name, and that was a good story. What I want to say about, you were using your smile as your nonverbal show of respect. Also remember to repeat the mantra as you're smiling, and you don't always have to smile to communicate, give respectful vibrations off. And as you've heard from others, some men will misinterpret a smile, in the wrong way, right? On the bad, yes, there's nothing to say about that. That's just, yes, you're right, that's the way it is, and it's sad. On the ugly, yes, people in cars are scary, and that's a time when people really need to practice saying the mantra when they're driving. But this guy obviously wanted to run you down and show you that he was boss. And I don't think a smile was enough. I think he almost interpreted your smile as him mocking him and forcing him to stop, which is why he roared past you in an aggressive way. A very sad story. What I learned was well done. Your conclusion was well done and tied back nicely. Just the only thing I want to repeat to you is just, the mantra and the smile, you work them both through when you're doing the experiment and continue practicing it, but you did a nice job. Okay, we're out of time. We'll finish them up. Call your study buddies and start working on your introductory speech. Where are we meeting Monday? Library, Powell Library, second floor. Does everyone know where that is? If you don't, ask anyone, ask me. Da da da.